Hello and welcome. We're going to talk about The Great Gatsby, Chapter 3 today, the big party scene. So, very exciting. And we'll take a look at some pictures and we'll go through what happened in that scene. All right, so settle in. Okay, so we're going to talk about the party scene today, which is, I think, a great indicator of who Gatsby is in public. And that's kind of our purpose in this chapter, is trying to figure out who Gatsby is when he's around a lot of people. So we get to see a lot of things happening at the party, and we get to see like what people think he is or who he is, and we get to kind of discover Gatsby in that way. Sort of interesting that we don't get to actually meet Gatsby right away, but we have to search and hunt for him during this party. So the chapter starts out just kind of telling you how Gatsby gets ready for the party. He has an orchestra arrive at 7. And all of these details that we're reading about should equal one thing, that Gatsby has a lot of money. He has so much money that he can have an orchestra come to his house. He has so much money that he gets fresh fruits sent to his house every Friday. And in today's age, that might not seem like a big deal because you can just head on down to the grocery store and grab some lemons and grab some oranges. But in the 1920s, it wasn't that easy. It was difficult to get fresh fruit that wasn't grown in the state that you actually were in. So you kind of had to be wealthy just to begin with to get fruit that was shipped in. It was expensive. But then on top of that, to have crates of them, and he gets lemons and oranges brought to him by a fruitier, all of that should just equal that he is very wealthy. And these parties are just a scene and a like representation of how much wealth he has. Even the food, when you read this sentence, it's glistening hors d'oeuvres, it's spice baked hams, it's salads of harlequin designs. So they're not just laid out there, but they're intricately put together. A chef made them. It's even like you look at the bottom, we have pastry pigs and turkeys bewitched to a dark gold. And so we have all of these different types of food that are there, and it should just be a sign of wealth. This is just how wealthy he is. And of course, we get our color gold. And if we don't remember, gold is one of our symbols. And anytime we see the word gold or even the word yellow, any sort of yellow or gold, it should represent sort of two things for us. One, wealth, right? Because gold, we often associate gold with wealth. But then two, it is coupled with this idea of corruption or of tarnish. Like tarnished gold would mean it's not as shiny, it's not as new, that something is wrong with it. So if Gatsby's party is being described with those colors, with that gold. And it's not just here. Remember the two twin girls, they're in gold dresses, they're in yellow dresses. There's yellow flowers everywhere. I think he even says the music is on yellow golden notes. So it's described throughout this entire chapter that we should be in the back of our minds thinking, okay, yeah, there's the wealth aspect to it, but there's also something there must be a bit corrupt about this party as well. We have one of my favorite sentences in this chapter, and it just sort of to me shows exactly what was happening. It says, in the bar is the full swing and floating gardens of cocktails permeate the garden outside until the air is alive with chatter and laughter and casual innuendo and introductions forgotten on the spot and enthusiastic meetings between women who never knew each other's names. And it's all in this one big, huge sentence, separated by ends, not commas, not semicolons, but everything just seems to be happening at one time. People are meeting each other and leaving each other and dancing and drinking and eating. And this picture sort of captures that everybody's doing everything at one time. And these parties were kind of very chaotic. I love the old version of the movie, this scene that I'm going to show you right now, because number one, I think the music is more authentic to what you might have heard in the 20s. But then number two, like the people just dancing all crazy. They're going to jump in the fountain at one time. And it's just a very chaotic time. These parties are just full of chaos, full of drinking, full of fun, I guess. So let's watch this scene. dancing, of course, is just crazy. The Charleston things are trying to do. Like that last part where they're like, oh, so that's kind of, I think that was sort of what Nick was describing was happening. People just treated his house like a fun house. I think that's even the line from the book is that they treated it like a fun house. Like it was just chaos party. They didn't care what they were doing or if they were damaging anything. And what was interesting for Nick is that he was one of the only few people that had actually been invited to the party because everybody else just shows up. They know the party's going to happen. It happens every Friday night, and they just show up to it. And nobody's really invited. And because Nick is invited, he kind of wants to meet Gatsby. I mean, it was Gatsby's chauffeur that came over with the invitation, so it wasn't like Gatsby hand delivered it. So he's sort of on this mission through this whole chapter to go and find Gatsby because why not? He's the host. He hasn't met him yet. He got it handwritten. It probably wasn't handwritten, but he got an invitation, a typed invitation that invited him there. So he wants to meet him. And along the way, he runs into Jordan, who's there with her friends. And Jordan and Nick sort of couple up and they go on this hunt to find Gatsby. What's funny though is that whenever he asks anybody where Gatsby is, people deny even knowing who he is, where he's at, and that's sort of odd because if you're at somebody's party, you kind of know the person, or you at least like sometimes people get in a little competition about who knows the host better. Like I know them this person from this place, and no, but they're my brother's cousin. Oh no, but they're my blah blah blah. But these people are doing the exact opposite. It says Nick asks where Gatsby is, and people stared at him in such an amazed way and denied vehemently any knowledge of his movements. And that just is, baffling Nick. And so he goes on and he's looking for anybody he can find. And he runs into the twins and he runs into some other people, and they tell the story. This lady tells a story about when she was at the party the last time she damaged her dress. She broke the strap on it. And arrived in the mail, Gatsby had bought her a new dress, and it was more expensive than the dress she had. It was probably, triple the price of her dress. So it seems sort of a little inappropriate. But she accepted it, of course, because these are greedy people. And she went on with it, and she has it, and she loved it. And there's a comment, and it says, "There's something funny about a fellow that'll do a thing like that. He doesn't want any trouble with anybody." And I think we should keep that in the back of our mind. Like, what does that mean? And what is Gatsby's real purpose? What is he trying to accomplish? And he keeps looking around, and he keeps coming back to all of the rumors, right? Somebody told me they thought he killed a man once. And he's like, that just seems silly. And he talks to other people and they say, no, I don't think it's so much that. It's more that he was a German spy during the war. I heard that from a man who knew all about him, grew up with him in Germany. And then it moves on to, oh no, it couldn't be that because he was in the American War during the army. So they're kind of piecing together maybe little things that are fact and little things that are fiction to try to figure them out. But all of these rumors, like none of them are good. It's not like, it's I heard he rescues kittens from trees and he helps grandmas across the street. It's I heard he killed a man. I heard he was a German spy. So we have all of these rumors happening. And then somebody says, you look at him sometime when he thinks nobody's looking at him. I'll bet he killed a man. No, those aren't the best rumors to have about you. It really says about what they think who Gatsby is. Why do you think then that Fitzgerald starts this novel with rumors of Gatsby? Take a moment and ask your deskmate or tell your deskmate what you think. What are you, the reader, supposed to think about Gatsby if this is the way those rumors are? Because remember, it's not like, oh, I heard he gave $1 million to charity. It's, I heard he killed a man. Chat about that. So then they decide we better go into the house. right? We need to see if he's inside the house. So Jordan and Nick go into the house and they go into the library and they meet this character called Owl Eyes, and he has this glasses on him. And of course, you should think to yourself, this guy is named Owl Eyes. What do we know about owls and what are their characteristics and traits? And think about that as we read this. And he's this Owl Eyes guy is just so flabbergasted about the books in the library because they're real. Now, that doesn't ring any bells for us, in the modern day, but back in the old days, and probably even in some libraries that exist today, if you take a look at this picture, there's books from the floor all the way to the ceiling. And the books that they would have out of reach, like the ones way up at the ceiling or the ones way down at the floor, like the ones people would never reach, they wouldn't be real books. They would just be like cardboard cutouts of a book. And so that's not true in Gatsby's library. In Gatsby's library, all of the books are real, every single one of them. And it's a show of wealth, number one. And he says they're real, absolutely real, have pages and everything. See, and he pulls the books out, right, and he shows them. He goes, it's a bona fide piece of printed matter. It fooled me. This fella's a regular Belasco, and Belasco's an art director we'll talk about in a moment. He says, it's a triumph. What thoroughness, what realism. And then he said, and then to talk about Belasco for just a moment, he's a play director and he tried very hard to make everything on stage seem as real as possible. So, what that meant is like if the scene called for cooking, he wanted a real stove there so they could hear the sounds of it and they could smell it in the air. Like you put bacon on the stove so you'd smell it. Or if he was known to like pipe in fragrances, like if it was supposed to take place in a field of flowers, like he would pipe in like air to smell like flowers to really get that element of realism in the play. But I think the real question is like no matter how real you try to make a play, are you actually watching reality? Like, is it real? And so when Owl Eyes says that he's a real Belasco, he's trying to tell you something about Gatsby, that they're equatable in that same way. So, how must Gatsby be like Belasco then? What is he saying? Take a moment and tell your deskmate or ask your deskmate that question.